bleeding into yours.
Totally perfect. All right. And we went. Why did we? Okay, there we go.
For some reason, my camera is bleeding into yours.
Totally professional podcast.
Absolutely professional. 100%. Not planned at the last moment about 10 minutes ago.
You don't gotta tell people that.
Like they couldn't fucking tell.
That's true. I guess. I guess they could.
Jordan messaged me and goes like, so before we do regular Teamwork Tuesday stuff, why don't we get on camera and talk about BlizzCon? And I'm like, sure. Totally unprepared.
We're fine.
I'm not even wearing pants.
Neither am I. What about it?
Yeah, that's true.
As long as the cameras don't angle down, we don't have to report this to OnlyFans.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So, big announcements.
For one of the. Let's cut to the chase. We're going to talk about BlizzCon. And I'm just going to come out and say it. If you weren't WoW, BlizzCon was fucking pointless. There was nothing announced for Overwatch 2 other than the new hero. That is basically a Samoan called Mauga, who is Maui with machine guns. To the point where in at least 5 places in their panels, they just straight up called him Maui. Hearthstone. The only thing that were announced were Battlegrounds duos, which I watched some Battleground streamers. They seem to be excited about it, so good for them. And the expansion that they'd already announced. And there was nothing for StarCraft at all. Like when they came out and they were like, "My people of Sanctuary" and the adventurers of the near future Earth and denizens of Azeroth. They weren't even like citizens of the Caprulu sector. There's not StarCraft wasn't even there as an esport. And then Diablo, the only thing for Diablo that was announced that was worth a shit was they confirmed that there would be a expansion next year. They told us nothing really about it.
Nope.
Diablo 4's content of BlizzCon was 90%. Here's what we did in this season.
Recaps. Yay! Yeah. Kermit hands in sarcasm.
And then there was a little bit about Warcraft Rumble. Which if you've not played it, it's fun enough.
Yeah.
There's a PvE mode. That's all I cared about.
And for those of you interested, I did go ahead and start the 321 TV group on there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
I am unfortunately in the guild with my WoW guild mates, so that might be a problem.
Yeah, well,
we'll see. And then I knew there was something happening, right? Because the opening address is always led by WoW. It's always the first thing they do. And they brought out Overwatch 2. And I was like, hang on a minute. What's going on here? And yeah, it turns out that they saved WoW till literally the last thing they did, and I can see why.
Yeah.
Um,
As we do on this channel, we tend to look at things in the world of wrestling show, and
yeah,
if
yeah,
my
it was
opening,
very much the main event. Yeah,
to the point where, yay, he's back. But Chris Metzen, who always has rock star presence and energy on the stage, got a massive return pop.
Yeah, it was,
and carried through the end. It's even in my notes.
yeah.
Even in my notes, Metzen pop was real.
Oh, you have notes.
I wrote no. I did. I've got 4 pages of notes.
I'm going completely from memory because, again, I didn't know we were doing this until about 15 minutes ago.
Surprise!
Surprise, motherfucker! Some fries, motherfuckers.
Size.
Apple pies, anyway. Yeah. So they announced Cataclysm Classic, which has which confuses me.
But my note says, "But for why?"
Well, here's the thing: for those of you who aren't aware, people who, or I say people, the vast majority of vocal people who were begging for Classic were of the opinion that the reason why we needed Classic is Cataclysm killed WoW. Right? Now, the lady in the very awesome dress, the jacket, I can't remember her name. Holly, yeah, who announced it, said that they polled the players and things like that, and cool. If your data shows that your players want Kata, dope, right? She did say that it would be coming with hashtag changes, so I don't know whether they're going to address some of the issues that these people had or whatever, but I don't think they can do that while still making it Cataclysm, because part of what people disliked about it is the way it changed the old world.
Yeah.
And that's somewhat central to what Cataclysm is. There was a really cool cinematic for Classic, which was done in that sort of in-game machinima style, which I thought was really dope. I thought it was great. I have fond memories of Kata. I enjoyed Kata. In fact, Kata is one of the first times I was... So, my memories of Cataclysm are leveling through it with friends. My friends in my guild at the time. We'd get together for a couple of hours every night and just do some questing, couple of dungeons. So I have quite fond memories of Cataclysm. Now, bear in mind, I was not raiding during Cataclysm. I had been pushed out of raiding in ICC because at the time I only had the one character. I only had my paladin, and they had there was a patch in hey Ferrari, how you doing? There was a patch in ICC where they basically make disc priests the be all and end all of healing for the last like 6 months of Wrath. Something I seem to understand from talking to players they haven't done in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. The patch is different. And then at the beginning of Cataclysm is when they started the notion of every class should have the same identity, so that it doesn't matter what class you're bringing. Right. They got away from the whole class fantasy. Like paladins were no longer tank healers, druids were no longer like raid healers, priests were no longer sort of like general healers. It was like all your healers have the same toolkit. That way, it doesn't matter what a person's playing, right?
Bring the player, not the class.
That was what it was. Yeah, bring the player, not the class. And that killed raiding for me. I liked having an identity. I liked knowing I was going to be responsible for keeping the tank up. And I didn't raid again until Battle for Azeroth. When I joined this new guild that I'm in. And one night they was like, hey, you want to come hang out and do some cool stuff? And I thought we were going to run some Mythic Pluses or something. And they summoned me and we were fighting Queen Ashara in Eternal Palace. And nice. I was like, what? Like we were mid in the middle of Eternal Palace. And I'm like, I don't know any of the fights, but I'll come along. And that was but that was on my hunter, and yeah, but yeah, Cataclysm was very polarizing for the community, and it's kind of why Classic exists, right? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm sort of still in the same of the, but for why?
Yeah.
I get it. I've got people who sort of fell off wanting to play whatever retail had become, and they only play Classic. So if it shifts into them playing Cataclysm Classic, because mine is sort of the same. I raided in Ulduar in Wrath. My guild fell apart, and I didn't do ICC when it was a real thing at the time, and I was kind of just sort of floundering around doing my own thing. And then Cataclysm came out, and I was able to find more community playing with players who were sort of new to the game. It was one of my first midnight releases that I got to work as an employee for the shithole that is GameStop. So like there was an energy about it there, and that when you played, you got through faster, right? It wasn't a life suck to try to reach that end goal, which I liked.
It was kind of it was sort of the first expansion where leveling didn't take forever.
Right. I think I got a whole new alt to level 90 or whatever the hell it was at the time there in like a month and a half, and that was working a full-time job and a half-time job, and trying to go to school and all of that at the same time. So
I think a lot was learnt from Wrath in the way of quest flow.
Yep.
Because of like the way that they now have like the quest hubs and the breadcrumb chains and all that sort of thing. And I think that really helped Cataclysm, and it helped Cataclysm across the board. From the new zones to the revamp zones to...
And it helps zone design from moving forward in the, here's your hub, here's your breadcrumb to get you from hub A to hub B.
Yeah, I mean, Outland TBC is now by far and away the worst leveling experience in the game.
We started it because we said at one point we were going to go through and play all the old expansions
As a
before.
demon hunter. Yeah, we did that
Well,
one as
was
a
it?
demon hunter. And
You did it as a demon hunter. I did it. I was doing it just as a normal hunter, I think, because I was
were
working
you?
on.
Okay.
I think I was working on the orc heritage armor with that
Okay.
character.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
but we made it like we made it like
the
one
first quest hub. If that.
the second quest hub
Yeah.
out of that one. It was like no. There is one thing in Classic that I am kind of intrigued by, and I probably will dabble in, that they talked about, and that is the new season of Discovery.
Right. So, I thought this at first as well, to the point where I messaged you. I might even start playing Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the deep dive panel, or the what's next panel.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they talked about it in the opening ceremony, they very much spoke about tanking warlocks and healing mages, right? Which made you think there was going to be a transformative skill for every class. But it does not seem that that's the case.
It sounds like that there's going to be basically enchant slots, well, they're calling runes, that as you go about and you explore the world,
Mm-hmm.
You find these runes and then you enchant them to pieces of gear or
Mm-hmm.
slot them into pieces of gear, and they give you a new ability which then allows you to sort of
Do certain jobs.
twist your flavor.
However, the thing that really sort of hit home is certain certain classes will get runes that will allow them to take on new roles.
Right.
And the way that they promoted it in the opening ceremony by mentioning tanking warlocks and healing mages is they made it sound like every class was going to get one of those, which they don't. Hunters are still stuck being pure DPS. They do get a rune. They get a rune which allows them to get rid of their pet and become a melee hunter and dual wield, which, in my opinion, isn't really enough of a separation from Classic, where we have survival. That is a melee hunter, right? Now, if you told me that you could take your pet and tank, right, that'd be one thing.
Now, I will say they did say something about there were 100 or something like that runes across all of the classes that they were working on implementing.
Now, that's not to say, because they're looking to add more later. So that's not to say this won't come later, but they released sort of a like a checklist. Druids will still be able to do all three. Hunters are stuck just doing DPS. Mages now have DPS and healer. Paladins can still do all three. Priests are still stuck with DPS and healer. Rogues can now tank.
Right.
Shaman can now tank.
Dual wield tank.
Warlocks can now tank. Warriors are still stuck with tank and DPS. So hunters and priests are the only classes that don't have a... Well, I'd say paladins and druids as well, because they could do everything already.
But they were Swiss Army knives anyway.
Yeah. So those four of the ones that don't have these runes that transform what they do. which it bothers me a little bit. Now, Druid and Paladin, it's really hard to sort of be like, hey, let's give these guys a new role, because they could do it all anyway. But as someone who would want to play a hunter,
right,
in Classic, right?
Keep track of all that ammunition. Go for it.
What's the point? I'm just going to be playing the same, like...
Oh.
And then I'm going to get to the point where if they do add the hunter stuff later, because the way they're doing it is end game for Season of Discovery is level 25. And then then they're going to release more down the line.
Until you get to level 60. Because I believe it is only Vanilla Classic that the Season of Discovery is in. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah. This seems to be their version of the Classic Plus that everyone was talking about, right? But let's say 3 months down the line when they do increase the level cap and they add like a tank hunter, I then have to do all that catching up to do the end game. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they did say that they were going to do something like the Winds of Fate or whatever it's called.
Yeah, like the catch-up mechanic.
Yeah, they'll have the XP catch-up mechanic for players when they put the next... They called them level bands. They kept talking about level bands. When they put the next level band in, they said that they would put basically XP catch-ups so that people can sort of their way through.
Yeah. One of the things I did like that they announced about the Season of Discovery is no public testing.
Yep.
I hate the PTR. I hate it. Because, and this has happened several times in the last couple of expansions with my guild, where someone's like, it's day one of the patch, and someone's like, I'm bored already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you bored? It's like, well, I've done this all. I'm like, how? The story's not done. There's like 4 more weeks of story to come. Yeah, I did it all in the PTR. And I'm like, then you fucked up.
One of the things I liked about it was not just the fact that none of this is going to be on the PTR. There is going to be no public testing for it. They're going to be like, Season of Discovery, click, November 30th, go forth.
Yeah.
But one of the things I liked about it was that that it pushes you to go find those weird little corners of Azeroth. Like King Conan's throne out there in the Badlands? The Badlands. You know the place I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
To go find those weird...
that little cave behind Anchorage with the dragon in it.
Yeah. Go find those weird little corners of Azeroth. And that's where those runes are going to be hidden, is in those weird little corners. They did do that old school Machinima fly-through for Black Fathom Deeps, which will be the first end game raid at level 25.
10 bosses?
10 man. It's a 10 man 7 boss raid.
10 man 7 boss raid. Okay.
With completely revamped.
The first 3 bosses are people you already know.
Yeah, and it
from the original Black Fathom Deeps.
Yep. And it sounds like
the last couple of bosses are as well.
Yeah, I think they inserted. I think they inserted a couple of like the roaming random ones that like optional ones as bosses that you have to go fight.
Yeah.
It sounds like that they're going to be like some of them are going to be a little more puzzly about doing them. They're apparently fights that are redesigned from the ground up for the encounter, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So come November 30th or December, I will probably be at least looking at Season Discovery and seeing how I feel about it.
I think it will be... I want to say I might wait like a week, right? But I feel like if I wait a week, everything will have been found already.
You'll be able to go on Wildhead and find all the...
I know exactly where I need to go to get all my runes.
Yep.
Like,
I feel like it's why I kind of want to dive in like that weekend and that launch weekend with something new
Yeah.
and try to do something new with it.
Unfortunately, at that point, I should still be gearing up to do the new raid in 10.2.
Mm.
Right, so it's
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
anyway. That was sort of all the news they had for Classic.
Yep.
So, I guess now we move to the main event.
The main event. Dun, da, da, da.
Mm-hmm.
As we expected with this BlizzCon, we got the announcement of the next expansion for World of Warcraft, the retail. But we didn't just get one expansion title announcement. We got 3 expansion title announcements.
Yeah.
With Chris Metzen calling this the World Soul Saga, starting with The War Within next year. That's the name of the expansion, The War Within. And it will be followed up by an expansion called Midnight, and then an expansion called The Last Titan.
Yeah. So, I have thoughts and feelings on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of a way to put it that's not gonna that's actually gonna communicate how I feel. I feel like there is a certain amount of Chris Metzen coming back in and going, dude, the last time I had you, I stabbed the planet. What the fuck have you been doing since? Right?
That does seem to be a lot of it.
And he's tried to do his best to pull things from BFA, Shadowlands, and Dragonflight that he can use to sort of forward that narrative and make it sound like those expansions still really mattered in the sort of long run. But it definitely reeks of, well, let's just rewind 3 expansions and pick up as if we never left off. That being said, the stuff they have chosen to carry over very much leans into the storyline they have set up. So for those of you who weren't paying attention, they announced the World Soul Saga for 3 parts. The first is the War Within, in which we will be going into the center of Azeroth to defend the world soul against the forces of the void, which will see the return of Xal'atath. For those of you who don't know who Xal'atath is, I feel like I'm going to be just keep going backwards in time. During Legion, the Shadow Priest artifact weapon was Xal'atath. Turns out that it was a minion of the void trapped in this dagger that we ended up freeing in Battle for Azeroth, who then sort of turned us over to N'Zoth, and there was all this other weird stuff going on, and she said we'd see her again. And then during the Dawn of the Infinites dungeon in Dragonflight, at the end of the second wing, when you defeat Chrono Lord Deos, you see a Ridicron stepping through a void portal, and there's a very familiar elven shadow in the back of the portal. And then Chris confirmed that Xal'atath is in War Within. You even see her in one of the 2 trailers. Then Midnight will be based around Quel'Thalas,
Yep.
the reunification of the Elven tribes, and the forces of the Void have come to Azeroth to attack the Sunwell and snuff out the light on Azeroth, which we saw a little preview of if you've done the Void Elf storyline, recruitment storyline, which they foreshadow a little bit of in the features trailer for A War Within, as Illyria, the leader of the Void Elves, is getting a very different vision to everybody else. And then the third part is the last Titan, where we will return to Northrend and we will return to Ulduar, and the Titans will return to the surface of Azeroth. And in Metzen's own words, we will uncover a conspiracy that goes back to the dawn of time that will shake the very foundations of what we think about the Titans. Though I would argue that's happened in Dragonflight. I've never trusted the Titans. Never trusted them. But I am. I think that's why I'm at less. A lot of the WoW community has had a bit of a backlash to the whole, well, this was told from the Titans' point of view kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've had less of a reaction to that because I've never trusted the Titans, and seeing the books and stuff at the beginning of beginning of Dragonflight in the Legacy of Tyr dungeon has sort of underlined that for me, and everything that we've learned about the dragons since through the stuff with Alex Straza and Vironoth, and how the Titans sort of, and we'll learn, and the new book that's coming out, the War of the Scaleborn or something, I can't remember what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Where we learn about what the Titans did to the dragon eggs and things like that, to sort of, it draws parallels between what Neltharion did to the Drakthir with the Control Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they kind of came out swinging.
Yeah, they did.
What did you think of the idea to announce 3 expansions at once?
It felt like a please trust us, we have an idea of a through story. I think we've said it a couple of times on our channel here and in our podcasts. WoW sort of starts to suffer from this disjointing of story of, I was a hero, like I went and I punched Illidan in the face, and now I'm gathering lumber to build a fort in Northrend, like a chump, and then I'm working my way back up, and I'm punching Arthas in the face, and now I'm hunting Zevra in the Barrens again. There's been sort of this rise and fall and disjoint in the story.
I would argue that us defeating Arthas was the last time that we weren't the main character of the story. Because even in Cataclysm, the dragons know you as a you.
Right.
Thrall, there's a moment in Cataclysm that I will never forget, which is the first time you go to the Maelstrom and Thrall's like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you," like, and uses your name, like, up until you defeat Arthas, it feels almost like, because, like, let's take Nyxia for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The canon of the person who defeats Nyxia is Varian.
Right.
Varian's not even in the raid. Varian wasn't even free when we fought the raid. Right? Canonically, the person who defeated Cthulhu were the Green Dragons, not the 40 or so adventurers that went in and punched that dude in the face.
In the eye, but yeah.
Well, canonically, the people who defeated Kel'Thuzad were the Light's Dawn, right? Not. My point being,
right.
In TBA and TBC and Vanilla, you were just a soldier,
right?
And the main characters got all the credit. But from like Cataclysm and forward, you started being much more of a, because like you're acknowledged as the person who defeats Deathwing. Or you're one of the people that helps defeat Deathwing, right?
Right.
You're acknowledged in Pandaria. Like, in the opening thing for Pandaria, the king is asking specifically for you to go find Anduin if you're playing Alliance. In the opening to... I mean, what came after Pandaria? The WoD? It was WoD.
Yeah.
I mean, you are handpicked to lead the forces. Like you have a direct what's the word I'm looking for? You are a direct advisor to the leader of your faction. And it's been the same since. So it's interesting to me that, like you said, yeah.
I think I guess I was coming at it the wrong way. That it's the rise and falls, but it doesn't feel like there's much of a through, like the story doesn't go through. Like, you've got the story of your expansion, and then maybe some bleeds over into the next one.
Yeah,
but then it kind of becomes its own thing.
They don't feel like they're planning ahead,
right?
And they're just writing what's coming to them. And this has been a criticism that's been levied at them since, like, Pandaria, maybe?
Something like that.
And it just sort of... And in some cases, I can agree that it's definitely been them just going, you're just not ready for what's coming next. Blarg, blarg, blarg. And then the jailer shows up and everyone's like, oh, really? But I think in some cases they did a really good job of linking the two stories. Like, I think the link between Pandaria to WoD to Legion is really strong.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily... They don't foreshadow each other a whole lot, that's for sure. But...
the link is there.
Yeah. They do a really good job in that last patch cycle of yeah. But yeah, I think this is and I know that I'm going to be in the minority here, but I know a lot of people praise Final Fantasy for their storytelling. Final Fantasy 14. I firmly believe that Final Fantasy do the same thing. They just write bollocks and then they try to link back to it later. At least that's what it feels like from my experience with the game. Especially in... There's a moment in Heaven's Ward, right, where you're trying to outfit Sid's airship to go fly to the special disco planet, right? And you have to go back and refight 4 of the primals from A Realm Reborn, right? And that to me just smacks of, what the fuck are we doing? Shit, do that, right? Rather than just come up with new fights, right? It's not even like you've got to do a different version of the same boss. It's just fight the same fight at a higher level. And that just... And then there's the whole thing with the Warrior of Darkness. I know that comes back in Shadowbringers, like 2 expansions down the line. I will eat my fucking hat if they had that planned. To me, that whole thing was just a way to write out Minfilia. Thank God they did, because bloody hell. Anyway, we're supposed to be talking about WoW. This was definitely them going, we have a plan. We know what we're doing. Come with us on the journey, right? Was it the best idea to do? We'll see. Because it does take away... Well, because they're now in this weird spot, right? Where we now have 3 expansions named. We have...
Broad strokes plot.
A release date for one of them, which is late next year. For War Within. Right. But we now also... There's... One of the fun things around the time for BlizzCon is the speculation that happens, right? Like, everyone had been speculating this BlizzCon that we were going to be going to Avaloran, because that was brought up in the Dwarven books in the Legacy of Tyr. I need to sit up because my microphone is not going to just stay there. I was trying to lean back and be all, like, relaxed and talk about WoW, but... yeah, it's weird because... I mean, sure, we'll be able to speculate about, like, the specifics of what happened, what will be in expansions. But we know it. We know that the next one's called Midnight, right? So it's like... And we know the basic plot of it. It's like when, like he said when he was starting to introduce me, he's like, there's going to be some mild spoilers. He's like, hey, wait, what am I talking about? There's nothing mild about them. Buckle up.
Buckle up, put your helmets on.
And buckle your pants. Hold on to your butts. But yeah, just... There's a whole lot of... I think it did more good than harm. Because it really does underline that they've got an idea for where they're going, of the story they want to tell. However, it also felt a little like... Felt a bit like a Marvel presentation, right? Where they lay out all the movies. And it felt a bit like them going, this is the culmination of a 20-year storyline. I was like, so it's Endgame then. Guess what's happened since Endgame? People have stopped really caring about the MCU as much. So I will be very interested to see if they stick the landings, or B, what happens after they do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That being said, let's talk about some of the features they announced for War Within. There's a couple I'm super excited for. There's a couple I'm super salty about, but yet still really excited for.
Let's do the ones you're Let's do the ones you're salty about.
There's one specific one I'm very salty about, which is warbands. Very salty about warbands. Mainly because I went through about a month ago, deleted all my excess characters, transferred all my money to what was then my original paladin, Corbin, the dwarf, and transferred that dwarf to the server I'm now playing on, so that I could then have it join our cross-faction guild and be with the rest of my characters.
Right.
So now they've announced warbands, where all of your characters will be counted as one. Your banks will be adjoined. You will have access to the same monies. You will share transmogs, which is huge. Like if my plate wearer now picks up.
Made me happy.
Yes. No. Don't get me wrong. I'm so glad this exists for the future. I'm just super salty about having literally just done this a month ago. That's all it is.
Is this like me spending all the time building up my renown with Nat Pagel so I can get a water walking mount just for them to announce that water walking is going away and it has to be a shoe?
I would go so far as to say it's not as bad as that, because I wasn't going out of my way to do this as, like, you went out of your way to grind that rap, right? You're going to be salty about that forever.
Forever.
And I love it. We then had I love the fact that the transmog thing's going to be shared. So if like my paladin now picks up a piece of cloth gear, that will be added to my transmog vault. I'm super dope about that. I think that's awesome.
I like this one line. I wrote this line down. The warbands is a focus on the player doing the activities and doing the things rather than the character doing the things.
Yeah, because there had been a lot of talk about... All right, I'm going to bring up Final Fantasy XIV again. With Final Fantasy XIV, you have one character that does multiple jobs. And therefore, you only need one bank. You only need one set of retainers, right? However, WoW, I like having multiple characters and different races and things like that for different classes. So this is a really good way to get around that, of just sort of merging lots of things. They brought up the idea of warband wide reps. They did say that it would only start as War Within reps, but they would be working backwards and adding reps into that, which I can only imagine that is a whole lot of work.
Oh yeah.
So take your time. The other cool thing about Warbands is you'll get a new login screen.
Yeah,
Where you get to select 4 of your characters to be like sat around a fire. So if you can put them all in like matching transmogs or something, or I think that would be really fun. But even though there's only 4 people pictured sitting around the fire, you will have access to all of your characters
on one login screen.
There will also be cross-realm guilds, which is huge.
Very big.
Yeah.
One other thing that was really cool is we've had Soulbound and Bind on Equip.
Yeah.
Bind on Pickup, Bind on Equip.
And bind to account.
Bind to account. Which they now have sort of slotted one between Bind to Account and Bind on Equip, which they called Warbound until equipped, which means you can mail that around to all any of your characters, but once one character uses it, it's locked in on that character, so there's no passing it around, which means, when Gorehow finally drops for Bob...
I've got 2 now.
Oh, hey! I was going to say, when Gorehow finally drops for Bob on his priest, he can shuffle it off to his paladin or whoever.
Well, I think it's actually more to do with crafted gear. Because the big thing they also promoted is everyone's going to be able to craft from the same guild bank.
Same
character bank.
Yeah.
So my blacksmith will be able to craft warbound gear to send to my Death Knight, for example. Or I'll be able to... My leather worker will be able to... My leather working hunter will be able to send stuff to my demon hunter. Or my druid. Or my rogue. Right. But again, we don't know the exact specifics, and we may not know the exact specifics until
next summer.
Alpha, really, yeah. Which they said should be starting in late spring.
Yeah. I will expect some sort of big deep thing for the big Gamescom in Germany or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll expect something again like we had for Dragonflight around that time.
Yeah.
What's your...
But yeah, the cross realm and the cross realm guilds and warbands I'm salty about, but I'm super glad they exist.
Very excited for those, and very excited that means that people will be able to play. There was a big push, it sounded like, with both classic and retail this year about the idea that WoW was one of like the big pioneers in social MMO gaming.
Yeah.
And they're really wanting to bring back that focus on the social side of WoW and the social side of what brought people together into WoW in the first place, making that the center focus again.
It also seemed to have a very big focus on... I don't know if you guys can hear this, but someone has just opened up a vacuum right outside my window. So I don't know whether you out there on the stream can hear that.
I thought it was police cars going by.
No, it's a vacuum. I'm pretty sure. This is my wife, Amy.
Hi there, Amy.
Hello, the Amy.
Hello. Hello, the internet.
Clash. Anyway, yeah, I apologize for that. Anyway, where were we?
Next, what was the next feature you were excited that you were? What's the next feature you're excited about?
Oh, I was going to say that they were making a big deal about respecting people's time.
Yes.
The next feature I was super excited about, hero talents.
Prestige classes.
Yeah, so rather than add lines to the talent tree for 70 to 80, they have added hero talents. Each spec will have access to 2 hero talents, which means each class will have 3 total, with the exception of druids and demon hunters. It's quite funny. Ian has accosted us in the deep dive, said, whenever you see us show you one of these things, 90% of the time it will be druids.
It was
because
Ian or
they
one
are
of the engineers.
It was Ian because he was like, they are the single most complicated class to plan around because they have 4 specs. So if we can make it work with druids, we can make it work with everyone else.
Yeah.
Um,
and the list of all of the names of those hero specs are available. They did have those to show off at the deep dive.
yeah, there are some that sound really, really cool, but there are also some that just tell you what they are, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? Like, there's a hunter one called Pack Leader. Gee, I wonder what that's going to be all about. Or Dark Ranger. I wonder if that's going to be Marksman. Or Sentinel. I wonder if that will be the survival one. 1 second.
Also...
the the mage ones. Sun Fury. I wonder if that's fire. Frostfire. I wonder if that's frost. Spellslinger. Wonder if that's arcane. But yeah, that's the thing they were quite clear about is, even though like Pack Leader might be the Beast Mastery one, they will still have access to probably either Sentinel or Dark Ranger, because every spec choice will have access to 2 of them. The examples they used in the deep dive was a Balance Druid having access to Keeper of the Grove, which focuses a lot of their DPS around having their treants out.
And having a bonus to their DPS and their healing with having treants.
Yeah. And then having Elune, and the other one was Elune's Chosen, which focuses a lot more on Starfall, Moonbeam, and all that kind of thing.
Their arcane spells.
Yeah. There will be 10 talent points for you to spend, and there will be 10 talents. So you will end up with every talent. Okay? And I think they said there would be 3 choice nodes in every hero spec. So, yeah, super looking forward to that.
I like the idea that there'll be a key, like a key ability that sort of is the thing. Like we were saying, Keeper of the Grove is about having the treants out and using the treants. You don't have to. There'll still be benefits to running with all the other all the specs, but then they'll have a capstone ability that kind of ties back into the whole theme that they're building.
I can say though, I can see how there will be, like, I'm a Beastmaster Hunter. I don't think I will ever not play Pack Leader. right? Because for me, the class fantasy about my hunter is
All
being
the
best
animals.
friends with a bear,
Yeah.
right? And especially given like the new hunter tier set is based all around summoning animals, right? So it's gonna be like, I wonder if I should be playing pack leader. But yeah, I don't know. I love the idea of hero specs. It's something we've asked for a while. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, there are visual effects to go with it.
Fun fact: there are. They
Okay.
showed off warrior. They showed off a warrior using like it's not heroic leap, but something like heroic leap, where they showed, I want to say, the mountain thing and the Colossus version of it. And the Colossus sort of jumps in, has a little bit of a shockwave, and it's a great single target. Like, I'm bashing one single target, whereas the mountain thing comes in and there's sparks of electricity and thunder wave coming off of it as it goes. And then little bolts of lightning go and hit all of the targets around.
Yeah. But I mean more of a. I mean more of like a. Like, I think it's great that like abilities will have visual effects. I mean like effects on your character.
Oh, okay.
Like if I am a pack leader, right, my gear should be more furs and that kind of thing, as opposed to a Dark Ranger, which should be more sallow and have the hood and the black. Everything should be black. And yes, I know I can achieve that through transmogs, but I feel it should be tied to.
I got what you're saying now. It'd be interesting to see.
Does that make sense?
No, now that you describe it, yes.
Like if you're a keeper of the grove, balance druid. I'd love to just like, if you're standing still, like shit just starts growing out of you. And like if Ilune's chosen, like a moonbeam will come down on you every now and again, or that kind of thing, right? Because I know that for Ilune's chosen, there's that one glyph that turns you into the ghost form or whatever. But
it's a
I would love to. Yeah, I would love for there to be something more tied to the hero class.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see what they do with that. Another thing they talked about. I want to slot this in real quick before we get to our next long topic. Dynamic flight. They'll have mounts that can do the dragon riding all over, and it will be a toggleable choice if you want to do it or not. So you don't have to use dynamic flight, and that's obviously coming sooner to Dragon.
It's coming 10.25.
Yep.
So that's coming this expansion. There is also worth noting that they said that they will be expanding it to other mounts, but not all mounts will work with it. I think it's going to be an absolute shame if they haven't managed to get all of the class hall mounts working with it, because the class hall mounts are one of my favorite things about Legion, that every class got this very specific kind of, but like I can't see the mage disc working very well with dynamic flying. I can't see the shaman riding on the back of the elemental working very well with it. That would be a real shame. I personally, if I'm ever given the option, I will never use dynamic flying again, because it, not only do I dislike it, it makes me motion sick, which I'm not looking forward to the dragon riding stuff that they talked about. Like there's going to be a dragon riding section of the new raid, and then there's going to be a dragon riding or dynamic flying, I guess, portion of a dungeon in the next expansion. But yeah, I'm super happy for people that like it, but I am glad that they are giving us the option to use normal flying instead. What was the next big thing that you wanted to talk about?
Delves.
Delves, yes, bring them to me.
Open world exploration focused instances.
Yeah.
It the it it is to become sort of a new end game pillar with the War Within. So much so that they are removing the PvP row out of
Mm-hmm.
Grand Vault and putting in world exploration as a. They didn't even call it a Delve Zone. I believe Ian said that this will be labeled as a world
Yes,
line.
because things like world bosses
quests
will
and
contribute,
world bosses.
and doing a certain amount of weekly quests.
Will contribute to your progress towards the Great
You're
Vault.
great, Vault. I'm so happy.
I am super happy because I don't get into doing mythic pluses and raiding as much anymore. So I'm very happy to have something where me just playing the game and exploring the world will unlock some of that content for me.
I mean, I've gotten lucky now that I've actually managed to sort of find a regular raiding schedule that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also don't want to take all of my characters raiding.
Right.
Like I like playing paladins as tanks. I don't want to tank raids. If you will forgive the French, fuck that noise. Like if a spec has a tank spec, I'm probably playing tank spec for most of that character's life, just because you're fucking invincible. You just don't die. And I don't want to have... Now, we got into this really cool thing. Now, I'm going to... open up a bit of a window into my discussion here. I had a talk with the officers in my guild recently about how I saw my future in raiding, because I flat out refuse to play like meta builds, meta classes. I don't care if survival and marksman are better than Beastmaster Hunter, which they are. Beastmaster 300 is currently the worst DPS in the game. I'm not going to switch, right? Because that's not what I want to play. And I felt that if I were to come along on heroic raiding, because of the way dynamic scaling works in raiding for WoW, I would be hurting our guild. And we got into this interesting discussion where in 10.1, you can get the same item level of gear from doing normal as you can from doing heroic. It takes like way longer, but you can do it because the way the new upgrade system works, an 8 out of 8 champion piece of gear is the same item level as a 4 out of 5 heroic piece of gear. And you can't get to 5 out of 5 heroic piece of gear without going into a mythic dungeon and killing bosses.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's really occurred to me this patch, very specifically this patch, is I don't have to be heroic raiding, which I really like. And I think that going forward with this new open world track of filling the Great Vault and things like that, I think it's going to make it even easier to just sort of fill that, like build your characters up. You know what I mean?
Yep. They said Ian said that the World Row should provide about Mythic plus 10 to 15, somewhere in that realm.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it. Like I said, I spend more of my time doing open world stuff and questing and leveling ults anyway. So I'm excited for that change. There will be an NPC that you can run along with. I believe they said the first season was
1 is Bran.
Bronzebeard. And some of the gear you'll find is gear specifically for Bran, and you can spec them out to fill any role you want in your party.
So if you need like a healer, because the thing about delves is they are for 1 to 5 players.
Role agnostic.
Right. Role agnostic. Some will involve fighting. Some will involve like
Jump puzzles.
Solving riddles and things like that. I can foresee myself and Jordan like once a week getting together and just go doing some delves or something.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited about delves.
Stoked for it.
I legitimately can't wait to see what they implement, and the fact that my boy Bran is season 1, I'm super excited about that.
As commented, Ian said that delves are the sort of culmination of lessons learned from things like Torghast, scenarios,
Islands expansion,
expeditions.
Well, it can't be any worse than Torghast.
Yep.
Torghast was really the epitome of how bad these things can be. They kind of left them alone in Dragonflight, which I'm glad for, because I don't think that I don't think another system like that would have cascaded into delves very well. I think people needed some time off after Torghast, because the mistake they made with Torghast that they didn't make with any of the other things is they tied player power directly into it, forcing you to do it. They tied the whole legendary system into Torghast, and I hated doing Torghast.
Yep.
I hated it.
So I think the fact that this is now one of the 3 endgame pillars.
Yeah.
It's not a mandatory thing. If you do it on an alt, if you'd rather this instead of mythics or raiding, you're still going to get the same kind of
rewards. Yeah. And I am all. I can't imagine it will be. I don't think it will. What am I trying to say? I don't think it will be a 1-to-1 correlation, right? Because, for example, right now, the first row of the thing is kill 2 bosses in raids, or do 3 mythic dungeons, I think, or a +3 mythic key. It's one of the 2. My point is, it won't just be like, oh, if I do 2 world quests things or 2 delves, I'll get the same thing as killing 2 raid bosses. You might need to do like 3 or 4 delves.
Right. There's probably a lot more. There's probably going to be a lot more to it, but
yeah. One of the things they said on the deep dive was they didn't want there to be a correct way to do it. So,
And the big cheer out of that one, from that whole thing, was the PvP row being removed and
yeah.
you earning solely conquest points to be able to buy and customize your gear as necessary rather than hoping for lucky rolls.
Yeah, I believe the phrase that Eon said is, we've heard some feedback that randomness in PvP gear may not be the thing we need to go for in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, is there anything else you want to...
I mean, there is, but it's already 4:30.
Yeah.
We've been at this for an hour already. I will sum up by saying I'm super excited to see where WoW is going over the next 5 to 6 years. I will, however, still not be taking part in PTRs or betas or alphas. I will be avoiding spoilers. I will be enjoying the game on release. I know there's been a lot of feedback recently where people are like, "Oh, the game's just not what it used to be." I'm like, "No, it's because you're playing through the game like 3 or 4 times before the game comes out. Just sit back, enjoy. I mean, I'm going to go on record and say I think Dragonflight is the best expansion they've ever made. And no other expansion has told stories as well, in my opinion. I can say for a fact that no other expansion has made me cry 7 times in the course of questing. With another one being added yesterday, by the way. There are some misdirects that they've definitely pulled during Dragonflight, or at least I hope they have. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the next 6 years of WoW at this point. I can't wait.
I think we're both excited looking forward. If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to find us over on Twitter or X at 321 Podcast. This video I will be publishing up on our YouTube page and tweeting that out and sending that out through all of the Discord channels and whatnot that I follow, that I post these kinds of things in. So keep an eye out for this to show up on our YouTube page as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. That being said, I want to